Hi students, welcome to our channel Parallax. My name is Pallabi and today we are going to discuss the 0580 paper code, Cambridge IGCSE Mathematics paper, the core section and paper number 11. So let's begin. This is how the paper looks like. This is the May-June 2019 paper. Remember, you can use dark blue or black pen. I will try to use these two colors as much as possible. When I have to explain something, maybe I'll go for a different color so that you know that this is not the part of the question paper. Okay, let's begin shortly. Now, look at the first question. It says write 3/4 as a decimal. So you can use a calculator. That means we will solve this first by using calculator. That is 3 divided by 4 gives you a 0.75 and it's a 1 marker. So that's your answer. Let's go ahead with the next question. It says work 1.20 as a percentage of $16. So what does that mean? It means that $1.20 is equal to what percent of $16? That is what has been asked. Now, how to solve this? Now, when you see what percent, how do you write it? We write it like this. 1.20. Remember, percentage means out of 100. So let's take the unknown as x. So this will become 1.20 is equal to x by 100 or x percent of $16. This is what you have to calculate. So here we are coming across the equation, that is solving a linear equation. You have to solve for the value of x. How do you do that? So we have to get rid of the 100 and the 16. So how do we get rid of the 100 and the 16? Take the 100 to the other side and 16 as well. Isolate the x. That is, make x as the subject. If you do that, what happens is this 1.20 will get multiplied by the 100 and the whole thing will be divided by 16 and that is your value of x. 1.20 times 100 means the point shifts 2 places to the right. So it becomes 120 by 16, which is x. Again, if you use your calculator over here, 120 divided by 16 gives you the value of 7.5. So 7.5% is the answer. Moving on, the next question says factorize 5y minus 6py. How do we do that? So remember, we look at both the terms. We look at the numbers first. Whether we have something common between 5 and 6, that is, do we have any common factor of 5 and 6? No, right? So we look at the variables next step. That is, we look at what do we have common over here? We see that y is common in both the terms, right? So first we will write the expression. Remember, this is called an algebraic expression. It is different from an algebraic equation where you have an equal to also, right? So this is an expression we are talking about. So 5y minus 6py will be equal to, now you take y outside, you are left with 5 minus 6p in parenthesis. So that becomes your answer. That is where you leave it, right? Because you cannot solve it further or simplify it further. Moving on to the next one. Now this is a question on probability. That is, a bag contains green balls and red balls only. A ball is taken at random from the bag. The probability of taking a green ball is 0.38. Now, before we move ahead with this question, I just want to explain some parts of probability so that the question becomes very easy for you all. So what do we mean by probability? See, probability of any event A happening means what is the number of possible outcomes of this event to happen divided by the total number of outcomes. Right, this is what it means. Now, keeping that in mind, the probability can also be expressed as a percentage, as a decimal. In this case, it has been expressed as a decimal. So it is 0.38. It can also be converted into a percentage. So if this has to be converted into percentage, it will be 38%. percent. It can also be expressed as a fraction. So if it has to be expressed as a fraction, it can be 38 by 100. You can solve it further as well, right? The maximum. Now, what can the maximum probability be? The maximum probability can only be 1 because think of it like this. This is a decimal, right? Probability is number of possible outcomes upon total number of outcomes. Let's try to understand this with an example. So suppose you have a bag in which there are 5 red balls and only red balls are there, no other balls. So what is the total number of outcomes you will write? It's upon 5. Now, what is the probability that you will select a red ball? It will always be 1 because it will be always red ball, right? So 5 out of 5 or 1 will be the answer if you have only red balls in a bag. If this looks confusing, now let's do the question, then maybe your concept will become more clearer. So keeping the formula of probability in mind, we are starting with the question given over here. So we have the probability of green ball. So it has a bag contains only green and red balls. Probability of a green ball is 38, 0.38. So that means if the total number, let's convert it into percentage, we are talking about 38 by 100, right? That is, what does this mean? That if there are total 100 balls, 38 out of the 100 balls are green because number of possible outcomes over total outcomes. Now tell me, if this is the case and the bag has only green and red balls, then how many red balls does the bag have? Obviously 100 minus 38, right? 100 minus 38 is how much? 62 out of 100, right? So that will be the answer for the red balls. Now how do we write that? So the probability of a red ball will be how much? 1 minus, so you can convert it into fraction and do it like this. This is one of the way to do. That is, you have 38 by 100, so that is the probability of green ball. You write P of G as 38 by 100. So P of red will be 100 minus 38 by 100, which is 62 by 100 or 0.62. That is one of the ways of doing the question. The other way is you straight away use only the decimals and not the fraction or the percentage part. That means probability of getting a red ball, P of red ball, will be 1 minus 0.38. That is the total possible outcomes, which you have 1 minus 0.38, which gives you, so 1 minus 0.38 is, let's check, it will be 1 minus 0.38, which gives you a 0.62. And that's your answer, right? Now, what is the probability of getting a blue ball? Now, this is a tricky question, an easy one, but tricky one. Is there any blue ball in the bag? No, right? So what will be the probability of taking out a blue ball? It will be 0 because there are no blue balls at all. So whatever may be the total balls, the probability of taking a blue ball will always be 0 because there are only red and green balls available in the bag. So probability of a blue ball will be 0, and that's your answer. Moving on. Now we have on Monday, the temperature at midday is 4 degrees Celsius and temperature at midnight is minus 3 degrees Celsius. Work out the difference between the two temperatures. Now over here, a concept of number line is very, very important to understand. So first I will tell you about the concept of number line and then we will use that to solve this question. Okay. And then I will tell you as well why that method is not a very good method to solve this particular question. So let's make a number line first. So we have a number line. This is 0. Let's number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. On the left hand side, we have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Now, negative numbers are very unique. The more you go on the left hand side, that is the bigger the negative number, the smaller is its value is, right? I hope you know that. That is, -1 will be smaller than 0, -2 will be smaller than -1, and so on, right? So On midday, the temperature is 4 degrees Celsius, plus 4. So we are over here. And the temperature at midnight becomes -3. So what is the difference? So what we do, -3 is over here. So how many places do we have to go? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we go 7 places, or the 4 degrees Celsius decreases by 7 degrees to reach a -3. I hope this part is clear. Okay. Now the trick is you cannot use number lines always to solve such questions. What if the question was that on midday the temperature is 44 degrees Celsius? Then what would you have done? Would you have moved from 44 all the way till -3? Your whole time would have been up, right? So that is where integers come into picture. This question has to be solved using integers. However, knowledge of number line is very, very important, right? So let's start solving by using integers. So we have our number which is 4 degrees Celsius at midday, and we have to find the difference. Difference means we have to subtract the -3 from the 4. So why have I written two negative signs? Because -3 is getting subtracted from 4. So this is for subtraction operation, and the number itself is -3. Now, if in integers, what happens when you have two negative signs like this? You add them up, right? So this will become 4 plus 3, which is also 7 degrees Celsius. That's your answer. Okay. Moving on, the next part. So on Wednesday, the temperature at midday is -1 degree Celsius. By 7 p.m., the temperature has fallen. So you have -1 already. Then it falls. That means, again, you subtract 4. It falls, right? Falls by 4 degrees Celsius. So you subtract a 4 degrees Celsius. So where do you reach? You reach -5 degrees Celsius. That's your answer. You can also solve this by number line. But again, as I said, for big numbers, the number line doesn't work. Moving on, the next part. Volume of a cuboid is given as 180 centimeter cube. The base is a square. So remember, the properties of a square is that all the sides will be equal. So if you make a square, all sides are equal. That is what we will use over here. So you have a cuboid. A cuboid usually looks like this. So let's say this is our cuboid. And we have, so usually length, width, and height, all three are different in case of a cuboid. In this case, since the base is a square, that means the length and the width, sorry, this is the width. The length and width are same. And this is the height. We need to find the height, right? So length and width are same. Let's keep it as length itself. Let's name it as letter L. Now, what do we mean by volume of a cuboid? Volume means the space occupied. How do you find out the volume? The formula for volume of a cuboid is length into width into height gives you the volume. In this case, the width is also equal to the length, right? Because the base is square. So what you do? And the length is given as 6. So 6 times 6 times height is the volume. Volume is also given to you, which is 180. Now here again, you have two methods to solve this question. The first one is you can use your calculators and you can simply do like this. 36 times h is equal to 180. H becomes 180 by 36. If you use the calculator, you will get the answer 5. But if the question comes in the no calculator section, that is, you do not have to use a calculator, then how will you solve? So it is 6 times 6 times h is equal to 180. The method which I use to solve this is, you do not multiply the 6 with 6. Keep it as it is. So h becomes 180. Now remove these 6 from here. So how do you do that? These 6's will come below 180 over here, right? You're getting rid of the 6's. So you're finding the value of h. That is, you're making h the subject. So if that happens, now you individually divide them. Since there is a multiplication, you can do that. So 6 divided by 6 gives you 1. 6 and 180 divided by 6 gives you a 30. Again, 6 divided by 6 gives you 1. And 30 divided by 6 gives you a 5. That's the other way in which you can reach to the answer 5. Both are correct. Both methods are correct. Moving on, write the numbers in standard form. So standard form means you have the decimal point after the first digit. So it has to be something like this. Now, any real number is, even if the point is missing, it is assumed that the point is over here. That is, 2 can be written like 2.0, right? And so on. So if the point is already on the right extreme, we have to get the point after 6. So how many places do we move to the left? We move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So this becomes 6.4 times 10 to the power 5. When you move to the left, you put a positive power. Second question, you have 0.0006. Now this time the point is already given. And remember, although we say that after the point, if you have zeros, it doesn't have a value, only if there is no other number following it. So over here, after the 3 zeros, there is a 6. So definitely the 0 has a value, right? So what do? We move the point to the right this time. How many places? 1, 2, 3, 4. And you have 6.0 or 6. Both are correct. Times 10 to the power minus 4. Since you are going to the right, it is negative 4. To the left, when it was to the left, it was positive 5, and so on. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So we have to work out the matrices here. So we have 4 minus 2 minus 1 by 5, right? 1 and 5. How do we work out? So addition and subtraction. For both addition and subtraction of matrices, you can individually add or subtract the terms. What I mean by that is, you can individually subtract the top two terms, 4 minus 1, and this becomes negative 2, negative 5, minus 5. So this comes out to be 4 minus 1 is 3, minus 2 minus 5 is minus 7, right? Integers. Again, you keep the sign, add the numbers when it is same sign. I'll repeat, when you have two numbers, same sign, you keep the sign and add the numbers. So you keep the sign which is negative, you add 2 and 5. If it was positive 2, positive 5, then also you keep the sign and you add the numbers, right? That is what is the general rule for integers. Okay, moving on. Next one says 6 times 3, 0. So when it is multiplication, then you individually multiply 6 with 3. So this becomes 6 with 3 and 6 times 0 as well. So your matrix becomes 18 and 0. And that's your answer. This is 0. So that is what your answer is. Okay, let's move ahead to the next question. So we have Asif and Ben who share $2100 in the ratio of Asif is to Ben, which is given as 3 is to 7. Work out how much Asif receives. So the total over here is 10. That is 3 plus 7 is 10. Now, Asif, so it's something like this. If the total is 10, if, I'm not saying that 10 is the total, I'm saying if the total is 10, then 3 parts out of 10 is received by Asif and remaining 7 parts Ben receives, right? That means the share of Asif's share is 3/10, right? 3/10, right? Of the total amount, Now, the total amount given here is 2100. So how much has Asif received? He must have received 3/10 of 2100. So this becomes, you cancel out the 0. So 210 times 3, which comes out to be 630. And that's your answer. I hope you understood this. There is another method to do ratios, but I'll come across that in some other paper. So if you find this method easy, just use this, right? Okay, moving on to the next question. So length L of a truck is given, which is 8.2 meters, correct to 1 decimal place. That means it must have been rounded off. So what are the values which you can take to get an 8.2 as the rounded off value? So 8.1, tell me, if 8.10 will give an 8.2, it won't, right? Up to 8.1 4, it will still give 8.1 as the rounded off value. If you have to keep the value to 1 decimal place. 8.2 will start from 8.15 because 5 and above you will get 8.2 as the answer. So your lower limit over here will be 8.15. Now how far will you get? How far do you have to go like this to make the value stay at 8.2? So 8.21 will also give 8.2. 8.22 will also give 8.2 all the way till 8.24. So your answer should be 8.24 and not 8.25 because 8.25 will give you an 8.3 as the answer, right? Because it will be rounded off to 8.3. So this will be your answer, 8.15 to 8.24 meters, of course, because we are rounding, the unit is given as meters. Moving on. Now we have indices over here. So you have t to the power 21 divided by t to the power 7. That is t to the power 21. You write it like this, t to the power 7. Now how do we solve it? The rule is if there is division and this is called the base and this is called the power. So if the base is same, then you subtract the powers if it is division. Since this is division, the operation between the two is division, the bases are same. So we subtract the power. So this becomes t to the power 14. It's a 1 marker. This much you have to show as the working. Okay, moving on to the next part. It says u to the power 5, the whole thing again to the power 5. So if you have something like this, then what you do is you multiply the powers. So remember, over here, you subtract, over here, you multiply. So this becomes u to the power 25, and that is your answer. Now I will quickly tell you also, if the question was t to the power 21 times t to the power 7. Again, your base is same. So this time it is multiplication. So you will be adding the powers in this case. If it is multiplication, then you add the powers. So your answer would have been t to the power 28 if it was a multiplication. This is just some additional knowledge not related to this paper. Moving on to the next part. Now we have a triangle which is given to us and we need to find the value of x. See, this is a right angle triangle and this angle measure is also given. That means we can find this x centimeters using trigonometry. Now, before we move ahead to trigonometry, let's quickly discuss the trigonometric ratios and how they are found. So sine of any angle theta is given as opposite over hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is the longest side, right? Cos of any angle is given as adjacent over hypotenuse. And tan of any angle is given as opposite by adjacent. That means sine of 35. So now coming to the question. So sine of 35 will be the opposite side to 35, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is the longest side, which is 12. This is your equation. From here, you have to find x. Now, how do we do that? X becomes 12 times sine of 35. Now, we will use our calculators. So, we will, let me just clear this, right? Then we have 35. And we will take the sine of 35, which comes out to be 0.57. And we will multiply that with 12 to see what we get. So 0.57 times 12, and we get a 6.88 as x. So 6.88 centimeters will be our x, and that's the answer. You have to show this. Before that, you can also give the formula for sine, which is opposite over hypotenuse. You can mention that before writing down the actual answer. Now moving on to the next question. So you have P, which is given to you. By writing each number correct to one significant figure, you have to estimate. So this is estimation. So how do you do that? Now look at this, 1.6. So 1.6 will become what? Will it remain 1 or will it remain 2? See, how to understand that? You have 1 and you have 2. If over here is 1.5, right? If you take any number lower than 1.5, then it will be estimated rounded off to 1. If you take a number greater than that or 1.5 also, it will be rounded off to the next number, which is, it will become 2. So 1.6 is definitely a 2. Similarly, 9.6 again will be a 10 and it is square, so you square it, divided by 5.9. That means it's somewhere over here. This is 5 and this is 6. This is somewhere over here. So this will become definitely a 6 and minus 4.3. Now 4 point, so if this is 4 and 5, if this number is 4 and this number is 5, 4.3 will lie more towards the 4. So it will be considered as a 4. This is what becomes of your formula which is given to you. Now just solve it. Next part which we have to do is the simple part, which is solving. So this becomes equal to 2 plus 10 square is 100 divided by 6 minus 4, which is 2. So this becomes 102 by 2, which is 51, and that's your answer. Then comes, you have to find the exact value of B. So how do you do that? 1.6, you have to take the actual values and plug it in the calculator. Let's do that quickly. Minus 4.3. So we have our calculator. You have to be very careful with the brackets or the parentheses over here. So I'll take 2 parentheses. 1.6. Where did the parentheses go? Yeah, 1.6 plus. Then I have another parenthesis, 9.6 and square of that. I think let's just quickly solve it. Hold on. This, I think there is a mistake over here. The parenthesis part is not coming proper. So yes, so we will solve it using the calculator over here. So this is what we do. Do not forget to put the parenthesis correctly. So this becomes 1.6. This is how you have to use. The answer comes out to be 58.6. Observe where all I have put the brackets. So you have to close the brackets, otherwise you'll get a syntax error. Okay, moving on to the next one. Now you have to, from the list of the numbers, we have to write the multiple of 7, right? So what do we do? How do we know which is the multiple of 7? So the multiple of 7 over here, the only method to solve this is just to check the numbers. So what do we see? We see only 28 is the only number which is the multiple of 7, because 7 times 4 gives a 28. So that's the answer, a cube number. So you see that 27 can be written as 3 times 3 times 3. That is the only number which is a cube number. This is what a cube number means. That is a number multiplied by itself 3 times will give you that number. If that number exists, that is called a cube number. So 27 is a cube number. And a prime number. So prime number is 29 and 31 over here. What do we mean by prime numbers? Those are numbers which have 2 distinct factors, the number itself and the number 1. So only 29 and 31 are those numbers which have only 1 and themselves as the factors. Now comes an interesting question. Question number 15, which says, without using a calculator, you have to work out 5 by 6 plus 2 by 3. How do we do that? First, we will write the problem down. 5 by 6 plus 2 by 3. See, the method to solve this is you have to convert it into like fractions or make the denominator common. What do we mean by that? To make the denominator common, you will have to see the least common multiple of both of them. As it turns out, 6 is the lowest common multiple of both 6 and 3. That is, it is divisible by both 6 and 3. So the first number will remain as it is 5, but you have to make the denominator common. That is, you're making the denominator 6 over here. So you're multiplying 3 with 2 to make it a 6. So you have to multiply the numerator also with 2. So it becomes 4. So this becomes 9 by 6, right? 9 by 6. Now you cannot leave the answer over here because you have to simplify it further. So if it is 9 by 6, you divide it with a number which goes both with 9 and 6. We see 3 divides 9 as well as 6. It becomes 3 by 2. That is 9 divided by 3 gives a 3. 6 divided by 3 gives a 2. 3 by 2. Now the question is, can you leave it over here? No, you can't, because this is an improper fraction. As the name suggests, you cannot keep it like this. You have to make it a proper fraction or a mixed fraction. How do we turn it into a mixed fraction? You start dividing 3 with 2. So 2, 1 gives you 2, right? And this 3 minus 2 gives you a 1. So this becomes 1 whole, 1 by 2. That's your answer. 1 whole, 1 by 2. You write the denominator on top like this. Not the denominator, sorry, the remainder as the numerator over here. Moving on. There are first 4 terms of a sequence given 5, 8, 11, 14. Very clearly, we can see that each of these is more than the previous term with the number 3. That is, if you add a 3 to this, you will get the next term, which is 17. Now the question comes that how do you find the general formula for this? So let's say for n, which n is the number of terms, let's say. When n is equal to 1, the term gives 5. When n is equal to 2, it gives 8. N is equal to 3. N is the number of terms. So the third term. By n is equal to 3, I mean it is the third term. And this is n is equal to 4. We have to arrive at a general formula. How do we do that? So what is the value of the first term? When n is 1, it is 5. That is, when you are multiplying the first term, this 1 stands for n is equal to 1, with 3, and you add a 2, you get a 5, right? Let's do the same thing for the next term as well. You have the next term as 8. Next term means n is 2 here, right? This is the second term. So if you multiply the second term also with 3, you get a 6. If you add a 2, you get an 8. Let's see if that happens with the third term as well. That is 3 multiplied by 3 plus 2. Yes, it is 11. Let's talk about the fourth term, which is 14. Again, 3 multiplied by 4, which is a 12. Add a 2 to it, you get a 14. So the answer comes out to be 3n plus 2. And this is the working which you can show. And you can say for n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2, and so on. Moving on. Now we have 2 triangles given to us, and we have to prove that both the triangles are similar to each other. Now, how do we do that, and what do we mean by similar triangles? As you can clearly see with the figure over here, the triangles are not exactly carbon copies of each other, right? They are different in the area, let's say, right? Area of the triangles are different. Then what is same? So for similarity, the first condition we should know is that, so I will write that down over here. So for similarity, there are 2 conditions. To prove similarity, there are 2 conditions. The first one is AA, rule of similarity. That is, 2 angles of a triangle has to be same. Obviously, all 3 angles will be same, because if 2 angles are same, the third angle will also be same, because the total sum is 180 degrees. So AA rule of similarity means any 2 angles of 2 triangles, if they are same, then the triangles are similar. And the ratio rule. So the ratio rule means that the sides of similar triangles are in equal ratios. What do we mean by that? So let's see what it means, okay? So we'll come back to this question and we will try solving it. So you have 75 over here. So we can say angle B is equal to angle Q and angle A is equal to angle P, right? From triangle ABC and PQR. Therefore, by AA rule of similarity, triangle PQR is similar to triangle, instead of P, it is B, instead of Q, it is A, instead of R, it is C. So triangle BAC. That's how we write. Now, if you look at the second question, that is, you have to find AC. Now, this is where the second rule of similarity also comes into picture. Now, we know that both the triangles are similar. That means the sides are in equal ratio. What do we mean by that? Look at the equal angles. So let's say we are talking about 40 here and 40 here. The side opposite to 40 is 6. The side opposite to 40 here is 18. So what we mean by that rule is 6 by 18. That is, you take side of AB, or let's write it like this, AB by PQ. This is A. AB by PQ, which is 6 by 18, will be equal to, the ratios of the sides will be equal. Will be equal to, now look at the angle 75, side opposite to it is AC, by, now over here, opposite side to 75 is PR, right? Which is equal to, we don't know what AC is, but we know what PR is, which is 27. So we got two terms like this, which are equal to each other, right? I hope you understood the sides, the ratio part of the similarity of triangles. So what we do is 6 by 18 is equal to AC by 27. Now I will use the same rule which I did in one of the previous questions. So I will divide both 6 and 18 with 6. So I get a 1 by 3 is equal to AC by 27. If I have to find the value of AC, I have to get rid of 27. How do I do that? I multiply both sides with 27, because if I do on this side with 27, then this cancels out, right? So I'm getting a 27 by 3 is equal to my AC, or this is 9. 27 divided by 3 is 9. So I get 9 centimeters as AC, and that's all. Moving on, a car travels at a constant speed of 20 meters per second. Work out the time it takes for the car to travel 10 kilometers. So we need to know the relation between speed, distance, and time. So we know that speed is equal to distance over time. Now, suppose you do not remember this, that speed is equal to distance by time. How will you do a question? In that case, always look at what is given. So speed is given to you, and look how it is given, 20 meters per second. Meter, obviously, is a distance unit, and seconds is a time unit, and this is speed. So that means from there also you can say that speed is equal to distance over time, right? Now let's talk about the speed which is given. It is given as 20, distance is given as 10, and time we have to find. We'll keep it as t. But can we put the distance as 10? We can't, because 10 is kilometers here. We need to convert it into same unit. So we have to convert this into meters. So what do? We multiply with 1,000 over here. Because why do we do that? 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. That logic. So now we have, again, we have to find t. So there are two methods to do. Either you can get rid of, so you can take the t on this side, right? If you do that, it becomes 20t is equal to 10,000. Cancel the zeros, which are extra. So t comes out to be 500 seconds. But we cannot write the answer like this, because it says to answer in minutes and seconds. So we know that 1 minute is 60 seconds, right? So we will do like this. 1 minute is 60 seconds. So how many minutes will be 500 seconds, right? How do you calculate this? Again, cross multiply and equate. So 60 times this watt is equal to 500, or this watt becomes 500 divided by 60. If you divide 500 with 60, you will see 68. So 48, you are left with 20. 20 doesn't divide further with 60. So your answer comes out to be 8 minutes whole and 20 seconds, which is left as the remainder. That is how you solve such questions. It's a 3-marker, so it's a little tricky. Moving on. Now it says that on each shape, we need to draw all lines of symmetry. Lines of symmetry means that the figure will remain symmetric across it. So if I make a line over here, the figure remains symmetrical, because if you fold it across this line, these two parts are similar, right? Symmetric. And the other possible way for this particular figure is I make a line across this, like this. Then also both these are symmetric to each other. So there are two lines of symmetry possible in the first figure. Let's talk about the second figure. The second figure, we have one line like this. Both the parts are similar. We have second line like this. Now If you're getting confused, let me remove this one. So it means both the parts are similar. So we already got 2 lines. Let's talk about any more lines if possible. Yes, we do have one line like this. So if you're getting confused, let me remove the previous one. So when it is like this, you see there are 2 parts which are symmetric to each other. And again, we have another line like this, where you have 2 parts which are symmetric to each other. So in total, we have 4 such lines of symmetry in this particular figure. Then we move on to the next question. So we have, write down the name of the quadrilateral that has a rotational symmetry of the order of 2. So it is a rectangle or a rhombus where you can make exactly 2 lines of symmetry, right? And exactly 2 lines of symmetry, again, it can be a rectangle or a rhombus, right? Both the parts are clear. It's a 1 marker. So you just have to name the quadrilateral. Moving on, you have to change 36270 centimeters into meters. Now, how do we do that? We know that 100 centimeters is equal to 1 meter, right? Instead of putting this arrow, you can put like an equal to sign so that it becomes more clear. Then 3670 centimeters is equal to how many meters? How do we find this? Again, the best method is always cross multiplication. That is, you multiply these two and equate. So what do you get? If you do that, you get 100 into what? That is 100 into what, which we are finding, is equal to 1 into 3670. We will keep it as it is. So if you have to find the value of this question mark, what? 100 has to be brought on the other side. That is, you have to get rid of the 100 over here. Make what the subject. Instead of what, you can take an x also. Okay. So when you take 3670, you divide it with 100. So it becomes 3670 divided by 100. What does that mean? It becomes 36.7 meters. It's a 1 marker, so you can do it quickly. Next one. You have to you have to put a scale and draw a line between S and T and measure it. That is what you have to do. The measurement comes out to be 7.8 centimeters. So the measurement comes out to be 7.8 centimeters. But the scale over here is given as 1 centimeter is equal to 15 kilometers. So 7.8 centimeters will be x kilometers. X is what we have to find. What do we do? Again, cross multiplication and equate. That is, x times 1 gives you 15 times 7.8, or your x comes out to be, let's check what it comes out to be. So we are going to put 15 times 7.8, and this comes out to be 117 kilometers. So now we are using the scale, right? So we got x as 117. What is this 117? See, 1 centimeter was 15 kilometers. So 7.8 centimeters will be 117 kilometers. That is where your answer ends. Moving on, measuring the bearing of town T from town S. So again, to measure the bearing, what do? Make a straight line. From the north, measure this angle. When you put your protractor and measure this angle, the value which you get is 137 degrees. And that is what you have to mention over here. Moving on to the next question. So we have a travel graph which is given for Michael's journey. And over here you have a distance time graph given to you. So clearly, let's first observe the graph. There are 2-3 things which you need to know before you start doing a graph. See, over here, for example, this is x-axis and it is time. Let's name these points A, B, C, and D, right? Now, if you see, it is starting, Michael has started his journey from point A. Therefore, and from 8 to 8:30 time, there are 10 equal spaces. That means these are 10 minutes each. So what will be the time when he started his journey? He started exactly 10 minutes from 8. That is, he started from this point. So his time is 8:10. That is when he started. Moving on the journey, he stopped for a rest. So when did he stop for rest? When the distance was not going up anymore. The only place is B to C. If you see, the distance is 8 and it stays 8 all throughout, right? BC, the time is going on, but distance is 8. So that means find the distance he was from home when he stopped for a rest. That distance is 0 to 8 or 8 kilometers. How many minutes did he stop? How many minutes? It is 10, 10, 10. So it is 30 minutes for which he stopped. Explain how the graph shows that Michael traveled faster before he stopped than after he stopped. So before he stopped, we are talking about the graph A to B. And after he stopped, graph C to D. So if you look at A to B is steeper than C to D. And what does the gradient of the distance time graph tell? It tells about the speed. So we know that the gradient of AB is steeper than that of CD. And that's how we know that Michael traveled faster before he stopped than after he stopped. Moving on, next figure, we have point P, which is given on a line, and there is a line L. So we have the coordinates. Now, how do we measure coordinates of any given point on a coordinate plane? We always keep the x-axis first, then the y-coordinate. So x coordinate and y coordinates, and that is how we name any point on a graph. So we have P. If you look at the x coordinate, it is -3 and the y coordinate is -1. So this becomes your coordinate of point P, -3, -1. Next point is to find the gradient. How do we find the gradient? The gradient is given as the rise over the run. Gradient is always given as rise over run. That is how much is the line moving in y-axis upon the x-axis. That is what gradient is. So the rise over here, let's take any 2 points. Let's take this one and this one. So y, it's moving 1, 2, 3 above, right? It's moving above. So it's positive. So rise is 3 and run, which means x is moving 1 and 2 only, right? Because it's stopping over here. So it's 3 by 2. 3 by 2 means it is that is the gradient or the slope. So it comes out to be 3 by 2 or 1.5. That is the gradient. Now you have to write the equation of the line in the form of y is equal to mx plus c. How do you do that? M over here means the gradient and c means the y-intercept. So you should know that y-intercept over here, if you see, is this. That line where it cuts the y-axis is the point where it cuts is -1 in y, right? So y-intercept or c value is -1. Gradient we have already found. M value is 1.5, which is positive because the rise is positive. So the equation of line becomes y is equal to 1.5x minus 1. And that's all. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.